and I didn't want...
President Truman, who briefly served as FDR's vice president, tried to downplay the seriousness of communist infiltration in order to save their party in the FDR administration's reign, the embarrassment of the scandal.
A young Ronald Reagan was duped by communists to allow them to spread their rhetoric throughout our political realm, which gave them more power. Check this out.
Communists tried to appeal to American sympathy and patriotism by claiming that the investigations infringe upon their constitutional right to free speech.
Next on the list of witnesses is Ronald Reagan.
This strategy had a kind of defanging effect on many Americans, including a young and naive Ronald Reagan, who in the mid-40s underestimated the covert and sinister tactics the communists use, which relies more on subversion and infiltration than open debate and the democratic process.
I never, as a citizen, want to see our country become become urged by either fear or resentment of this group that we ever compromise with any of our democratic principles through that fear or resentment.
We agree.
I still think that democracy can do it.
We agree with that. We agree with that.
These House and Senate probes were a huge thorn in the side for the then Truman administration.
But it wasn't very pleasant with me because I was as fond of Franklin Roosevelt as one man could be of another. And I didn't want...
President Truman, who briefly served as FDR's vice president, tried to downplay the seriousness of communist infiltration in order to save their party in the FDR administration's reign, the embarrassment of the scandal. Truman appealed to Senator Tydings to thwart the Senate probe and to go on the record discrediting the overwhelming evidence.
From Maryland comes the upset of the day.
Tydings acquiesced to this appeal, which likely cost him his re-election.
Republican John Marshall Butler defeats Millard Tydings, who rejected Senator McCarthy's charges of communism in government.
In reality, everyday Americans from both parties appreciated the investigations in the Senate and in the House because they too did not want communists in their government.
Tydings' defeat, and with it Republican T.R. McKeldin's election as governor, is followed in Illinois by another key administration figure's defeat, that of Senator Scott Lucas, Democratic Majority Leader.
So the question here is, did Truman, when he was vice president, know of communist infiltration in our government? So it reads here, it says Vice President Harry S. Truman was kept largely in the dark about intelligence matters, including the Manhattan Project and reports of Soviet espionage by President Franklin D. Roosevelt. However, after becoming president in April 1945, Truman was quickly confronted with evidence of communist infiltration and took aggressive yet highly classified actions to manage the threat. Starting in the late 1940s, the U.S. Intelligence Committee successfully decrypted Soviet cables known as the Verona Project. Historians debate exactly when Truman was first briefed on these cables, which exposed spies like Harry Dexter White and Alger Hiss. Truman's administration kept these intelligence intercepts strictly secret. They feared public disclosure of the code-breaking operation would cause a massive political panic and tip off the Soviets. Ultimately, while Truman was well aware of the reality of Soviet infiltration through classified intelligence channels, he sought to quietly root out subversion while preventing public paranoia from spinning out of control. So the question here is, was Vice President Truman and President Truman right for the way he handled things, keeping everything under hush-hush, trying to deal with communist subversion, like undercover in the back room, instead of bringing it out to the public's attention and making us, the people, aware of communist subversion in our political realm? Was he right for doing it that way?